See, in yoga, birthdays don't matter that much, though it is recognized that they do have a certain significance. Because all days are important days if you are in yoga. All days are equally days in which you make effort. There is no special day in which you will make effort. But psychologically and even energetically, there is a difference in the vibration of your birthday, because actually what is unique about the day? There's absolutely nothing unique about the day. It's a day like any other. What makes it unique and important is that it has meaning to you. I was born. How grateful and happy the universe should be, you know, because now I am giving it the blessings of my existence. So, if it is natural for us to feel that, it is natural for us to feel that sense of importance or that sense of value, that this is an important day, then we can make use of that. It is not because the day in itself is particularly important, like Shivratri is important, or Guru Purnima is important, or Ekadashi is important, or Dasera is important, or any of those, Diwali is important. It's not because of that, but because it matters individually and personally. It matters from a karmic point of view. It doesn't matter from a larger societal point of view. And it doesn't even matter from a larger spiritual point of view, but it matters from a karmic point of view, purely because your Vasana Samaskaras, your Inanubandhans created a situation where you were born on that one particular day to that set of parents. Now, I have explained before, they were not the only set of parents you could have had. You could have had many kinds of parents, and nowadays, of course, we have gone to the extent of timing the time of birth and then having a C-section so that you have the most optimal. And we are not the only people. Even the Chinese apparently have done things like inducing labor because they want children born on a particular day, and that's a very, what do we call, auspicious day to be born, a lucky day to be born. So I think few years back there was that 88888 something, and so all these are in very strangled ways, they are sort of acknowledgement of the significance of the emotional significance, the psychological significance of the day you are born. So if something has resonance with your emotion, if something has resonance with your mind, if you give it value, then yoga realizes you can use it. Because for whatever reason, from a karmic point of view, that day becomes important. That day is the day that physically you are embodied. Actually, your actual birthday is always 9 months before. The day we are born is not really, that's not when, that's why it's not called the life day, it's called the birth day, because that is the day we are born, but it is not the day that we come alive. So people don't realize that the spark of life actually happened long time earlier, and maybe you should look at that. But the fact that you are visibly embodied in the world is very important from a karmic point of view. because that is when relationships begin. Otherwise, the relationship is only with the mother and the father. That is when the Rinanubandhan, the external larger relationships with the Jagat begins. So that is why we give that significance. But from a meditational perspective or from a sadhana perspective, it is actually true that the day does tend to have certain qualities which are not found in other days. It does tend to give you certain sort of uplifting. Nowadays, of course, the problem is that we are busy worrying about who will give me gifts. Will my family organize a party for me? And then filling yourself up with sugar and alcohol, which are so all the benefits, all the natural energy upsurge that the day does, you do everything possible to cancel it out. So that's another matter altogether. And then we have this new tendency of cakes and then candles on the cakes, and then we snuff the flame out. I mean, that's how far away we have gone from our own culture, where we actually blow on a flame to extinguish it. It is just about the most atrocious thing you can do, sending saliva and your exhalation onto a living flame. That is just about a terrible thing you can do from a yogic perspective, but it's just a complete lack of understanding of the fact that the fire is the life principle. Why would you extinguish your life principle? So, it is a death cult. It is not a, have you noticed something very interesting about the cremating cultures? The cremating cultures, which used to be the world over, it was common. All the high cultures of the world used to be cremating cultures. They used to burn the dead. They don't have mausoleums, they don't have smarak. Even the word smarak is a made up word. It means memorial, from memory, to remember. Because we know that just because a person is dead, that's not the end. They'll come back again in a few years. so, so this tendency for, and that is the reason why they cremate also, because they understand that the karma doesn't stop. The karma carries forward, so there is no point making a fetish of the body. So that is the difference between cremating cultures and burying cultures. So because we understand the significance of the fire tattva, we understand the importance of the fire tattva. Of course, for the Parsis, their objection is that fire is the most sacred, therefore they do not cremate. We will not pollute fire by putting a dead body into it. So the reason why they bury or they expose to the vultures, if you throw it into the ground, you pollute the ground. If you throw it into the water, you pollute the water. So that is why they expose it to the vultures. There's a lot to be said for that. So they find it horrifying. Because for them the most important thing is fire, and we put it into the fire. But in our case, it's a yogic principle of cremating, because that principle of life itself is used to negate the residual karma, the residual embodiment karma, that is the body, which has no life principle in it, which has no prana shakti in it. So we use that fire tattva to reduce it completely to ash. But it's very interesting because the differences in culture, how, if at all we would do anything on a birthday, we would light a diya, right? Mandir mein ghee ka chirag, something like that. We wouldn't snuff it out. We wouldn't blow it out. It is. But who is there to explain all these things today? But from a karmic perspective, it is true that individually the person's date of birth is very important. You can do a lot on your date of birth. That day you should never miss your sadhana, you should never miss your meditation, you should never miss your practice that day. Because that day the vibration is easier for you. That day the thick veil of karma, the thick veil of Maya is less for you. Which is why it is very helpful that day if you go meet your teacher. It is helpful that day if you go to a temple, because all those are helps. That day it is easier for you to move forward. You can take gigantic steps forward. Instead of that, people put in millions of dead yeast cells in the form of alcohol. Now you have that much karma to deal with. Because it is one more day, what is the reason to celebrate a birthday? Does anybody ask that? Okay, when you're a baby, we are happy that we have a baby, there's a child at home, and there's happiness. And but once you grow older and you have responsibilities, every year is only more grief. Every year is only more tension. So many years have passed and so much is left unaccomplished. So many worries are still there in future. I'm not looking as good as I used to. I'm becoming weaker. So what is this milestone that we celebrate? Does anybody ask that? Or is it just an excuse to get presents and gifts and have throw a party? Which actually is the reason. In most cases, that is the reason. And children, even if they don't know that, by the time they are 4 or they are 5, they understand. Okay, here is a day where we can do some collection, where things can come to us. But what is the psychological or what is the spiritual reason for a birthday? A birthday becomes very catalytic. It is a day of stock taking. It is a day of considering. It is a day of analysis. You go over what has been done. All the things that I thought I would do in the last 1 year, have I done it or not? We know the answer to that. Most of it, not so. Many spiritual people actually go into retreat around the time of their birthday. This used to be very common in the Western cultures also, that around the birthday you would go to a monastery or some sacred place and you would just spend that 1 week in contemplating your life. You would spend that time in thinking, okay, this is what I feel about myself, this is what I just building a relationship with yourself. Because you see, most of the time when we live in the world, we have family, we really don't have any relationship with ourselves. Our relationship is with our family and with our work. And very few of us permit ourselves the luxury of asking, what is it that I really want or need at this moment? Especially if you have children, that becomes difficult, because they're dependent on you, and then that becomes a habit where you never consider. So if a birthday could be used as a method, to just take stock, take value of your life and what is happening to your life, and is it proceeding in a transformatory direction or is it proceeding in an accumulative direction? Because most of us, we have certain milestones or certain supposed achievements which wouldn't matter as soon as you are cremated, but we give ourselves ulcers in trying to accumulate those achievements. Here is the paradox. We have to live as if we are immortal, but at the same time we know that everything can shut down the next second. Now, those who are yogis can leave and go, and they can live in that moment to moment, and they really don't think about anything further. They live in that absolute spontaneous, the great enlightened masters. But when we are living in society, we need to have some sort of rudimentary social functioning. We need to have some sort of plan for the day, for the week, for the month, what we are going to. Can you keep the consciousness going that all these plans are wonderful? Nevertheless, if they don't work out, there is no reason to be upset too much about it, because I could have died. This constant awareness of this ongoing stability of karma that you call your life, and the fact that everything can shut down immediately, which is called wisdom, this is the paradox. We have to balance these two things simultaneously. So in yoga we have this very beautiful thing called Shamshana Vairagya, where somebody has been going along, they die, we go in the procession to the Shamshan, we see them burn, and then we come back and we start giving enlightened dialogues like, all life is transitory, you never know. The reason why is because then people regret all the things they didn't do. People regret all the opportunities for happiness they passed over. People regret all the good things that they could have done and they didn't do. People regret all the chances for happiness that they had, but they postponed it because, So Shamshana Vairagya is well known in yoga, and many people turn up. The reason it is well known is because they come with that Vairagya to the yogi and say, we want to take sannyas. And the yogi says, this will go away in 2 months, don't worry. You know? Many people get depressed around the time of their birthdays. Have you noticed that? Especially as they grow older, they get more and more depressed around the time of their birthdays. Because they are now comparing how they thought their life would be to how their life actually is. And the gap seems to be very uncomfortable for them, which is good. But how much can you manage life? How much can you control life? Life does not like to be controlled, I can assure you of this. If you try to control life too much, it will bite you. Very badly. You can have certain goals, you can have certain directions, you can have certain general principles as to, but if you try to micromanage every step of your journey in life, life will wreck you. It will shatter you. This is guaranteed. So a birthday becomes a time for reflection. A birthday becomes a time for meditation. A birthday becomes a time for recapitulating what is important and what is not important. A birthday becomes a time when acceptance can grow. Of course, many people, it's like a birthday is like a second new year, time for new and fresh resolutions. You know, things that I will do, begin exercising, taking care of, the birthday is always a time. So that's like a second new year. Those things do not last because they are external pressure driven. They are not internal. They are not intrinsic motivations. They are all things that are socially rewarded, or you think that if I do this, there will be some external benefit. That is what I call the accumulative desire. It is not a transformation. Even a growth desire, it is not. So, people get very unhappy about things that are not going to happen now. And so I've seen this. it's a common thing that people tend to get unhappy around festival times, because if they don't have people to share it with, or they're in another country, they feel very unhappy about it. In Western societies, the therapists all dread the advent of Christmas, because those who have families get messed up by the families, those who don't have families go into depression. And the weather is also such. So one of England's greatest therapists was telling me this, that we are terrified of Christmas and New Year. Why so? Because we work on these people the whole year, then they meet their family and the family takes them apart. All the buttons are pressed during the holidays when they go to meet the family, and they are back to square one. So birthdays very often, especially today where these external notions of success have become so important, birthdays today people do tend to become. Now some people are born naturally optimistic and happy. For them a birthday is a lovely time, okay. But most people are not optimistic and happy. Most people are very pessimistic. Most people have been burnt too much by life, or they've suffered too many disappointments in life, and they feel. But if you have a sadhana, if you have a meditative practice, if you have some kind of kriya, it is very true. A birthday, you can actually feel, I don't know how to explain this to you, but it is like you are breathing this very thick fog, and that day the air is light. You can actually feel the difference in energy. If you are in sadhana, all these sacred days of our calendar, when we have a festival day, you can actually feel that the energy is different. Especially Shivratri and Guru Purnima, of course, are the two. But even on Dasera or Diwali, you can feel that even the way you draw breath is different. And your birthday should be like that. The mother, Sri Aurobindo's mother, she had actually said people do not know how to use their birthday. People do not know how to use the potential that is their birthday. The birthday is a day of such tremendous potential that if you would actually push forward, if you would make a sankalpa on your birthday, and I don't mean like a New Year resolution, a sankalpa is an act of will, and now I will to see the Creator at work within the temple of my body. Yes, like that, you make a sankalpa, you could actually move very much forward, because that day the veil is thin. That day the vibrational thickness is thinned for you. It is a gift. It is a karmic gift. But like I said, you're so busy with the details for the party and the dress you're going to wear. And the guests, and all the 1,001 interactions that you need to have it. And now even if we would thankfully forget, or people would not remember, we have Facebook to remind us. So many birthdays, 1 month before they start, upcoming birthdays. Can you make that into an occasion not just of celebration? Of course celebration is important, but what kind of celebration is it? And please, at least, those of us in yoga at least should stop this candle business. You have no idea what you do. Every time you do that, whew, you are disrespecting the fire tattva. You have no idea the kind of catastrophic consequences it has from a spiritual perspective. Doesn't have any problem from a other kind of perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, it's a huge setback issue. Once you understand that fire is, of all the tattvas, it is the most easily accessible. The flame is actually very close to the actual tattva. The flame is still symbolic of the tattva, but it is very close to the actual tattva. The actual earth tattva is difficult to access. The actual air tattva is difficult to access. Actual water tattva is difficult to access. That vibration is difficult. But fire is actually the closest to the actual tattva. So if you do that, the tattva of life only you are disrespecting on the most important day personally. Then of course people have anniversaries, the day I got this, the day I got married, all those, so we keep multiplying significant days. But from a karmic point of view, the birthday is what is important, other than all the other days. See, our entire panchang, our sacred calendar is entirely, it's not about this is the day to fast or this is the day to do puja. It is only about energy is thick this day, energy is thin this day. Potential for transformation is great this day, vignams are very high this day. The entire panchang is a manual for aid in sadhana. That is all. But we don't get those things. Because of course there's nobody to explain, and we've forgotten all these things were organic at one time. Today it's not. The day we used to have our diet, the traditional diet used to be very seasonal. It was very connected to what food and vegetables was available at the time. Today, because of refrigeration, everything is messed up. So we don't eat the food that we're supposed to eat at the right time of the year. We eat anything at any time of the year. And if you look at the wax on those apples, you wouldn't even bite into one of them. They wax those apples to keep them shiny, and it's just dead matter. There's nothing nourishing in these so-called fruits anymore. So does that mean we should not have a party on your birthday? No, of course. Celebration is important. Joy is important. Ananda is important. But the party should not be the only thing, or it should not be the most important thing for your day. The most important thing for your day, no matter what, that day don't miss your sadhana. Don't miss your meditation. Don't miss your... Because that day the benefits of doing it are enormous. Incalculable. That day you can actually take a call on your life and say, okay, these aspects of my life I am no longer interested. These aspects of my life I need to strengthen. These new things I need to begin. You can actually do that. That day is actually more helpful than doing it on New Year, because the rest of the world is doing. People don't realize that New Year resolutions are because that thought is bouncing around in the atmosphere and it's entering your mind, and you think, okay, I am also, new start, fresh start. But actually the organic time for you to do that is on your birthday, because that is a karmic thing. For whatever reasons, your Vasana Samskara, your Anubandhana has brought you into manifestation at that time. So that significance trigger will always remain. Does that mean other days are not important? No. To you, no matter how far you go, of course, when you come to a certain stage, all days seem the same. Even if the energy is dense, you just push through and you can move forward. It's not like that. Once you're in the habit of doing your sadhana, once you're in the habit of coming to a certain stage of consciousness, it is not compulsory. But even then, because of the karmic setup, that is your uniqueness. Your karmic setup is your uniqueness. Because of the karmic setup, your birthday is always important. You can always move forward more on your birthday, not as much as on Shivratri or Guru Purnima, because those are special days. Or Diwali or Dasera, those are all special breakthrough days. Those are all enormous days, and they're like thousands of years. Those days, great masters have been pushing the doors open on those days. So of course those days will always remain immense. Or Buddha Purnima, that's another day that lots of stuff can happen. But at a personal level, at least get into the habit of using your birthday sensibly. At a personal level, get into the habit of transforming or working on the process of transformation and not on the process of accumulation. The problem why there is a whole marriage industry, there is a whole Valentine's Day industry, and there is a whole birthday industry and a wedding, like those are all accumulative, those are not transformation. They are all ways in which people in society are seeking to make money off your emotions. And those things you should object. You know, the the really serious people, of course, they look at what happens the previous year, one more year and I have not attained, one more year and I have not. But that is the wrong way to look at it. That again leads to pessimism, and because no matter how little you have moved, at least you have moved. I myself, for years and years and years, I just shut down everything on my birthday. This year I couldn't because I was teaching a tarot class, so that was the only time. But normally what I do is I shut down everything, shut the phone, turn everything off, and then just intensify whatever it is that I'm doing. Because over with experience I have learned that day is very useful. It's your personal gift from life, This is the personal transformation day, it's a gift. Now most of us cannot do that because we have social obligations and people calling us at 12 o'clock at night to wish us happy birthday. So the first thing I do is at 11 o'clock the previous night I put my phone on silent, because I'll have people who are usually drunk and sentimental calling me up to wish me a happy birthday. I neither like drunken energy nor sentimental energy. These But again, that's a personal choice. I do not, it's not compulsory for others. The thing is, use it. It is a gift from life, it is a gift from karma, use it. Don't just celebrate it or don't fritter it away in so called celebration. Okay? Sarvam Shabha.